Hello and welcome to a continuation of our recording on the series on GNS3 on Azure. So this is recording number 2, and in this I'll be showing you how to use Sophos appliances in GNS3. So we're continuing from where we stopped in the last recording. So from the last recording we have a GNS3 client all set up connected to a GNS3 server in Azure. Now let's take that a step further. How do we begin to build our GNS3 lab environment? How do we begin to add third-party appliances like the Sophos XG firewall, Sophos UTM that I'll be using in this particular recording to show this to you. So um, first thing that I'll do is I'll take you through the GNS3 marketplace and we're going to explore that just a little bit. So I'll go back to my GNS3 client that I'm connecting to via HowDP. So I still have that window open from the GNS3 website. So on the GNS3 website, I have the marketplace here. So if you click on the marketplace and you have appliances to the left hand side. So appliances, this is where you see the different appliances that we can use in GNS3. And one of the main things to mention is what GNS3 marketplace appliances. So these are um, files that defines the QEMU environment that our third-party images can run on. So what that literally means is, for example, if I download a Windows Marketplace Appliance file for GNS3, that file is going to define the QEMU environment that my Windows operating system will run on and specify the images that are needed um, to be able to run that environment. So for me to be able to use any third-party appliance, GNS3 appliance within GNS3, I need two things. I need the appliance file from the marketplace and I need the images from the vendor. So in this case, I'll be showing you an example using that of Sophos. So if I go type in Sophos there in the search window, and I have three Sophos appliances. We have the Sophos XG firewall, which is the latest next generation firewall solution from Sophos. Sophos iView, which is a very nice reporting tool. And then we have the Sophos UTM, which is the UTM solution from Sophos. So the Sophos XG firewall, I think that there's also that's available on Microsoft Azure. The Sophos UTM, I believe that's available on the on AWS. So let's go further. So for example, for me to use the Sophos XG firewall on GNS3, I need to download this file. So if I click on that and I click on download, that's going to download a file that ends with .gns3 here for me. So if I click on save, that saves that file. So I have this file. If I go over to my GNS3 environment from where I left it, I have new appliance template. In case you've cancelled the screen, you can go to File, Import GNS3 appliance, and you'll be able to import an appliance that you've downloaded. So in this case, if I specify import an appliance template file, it's going to take me here and I can go under downloads and I have the GNS3 appliance file that I downloaded earlier. So this is something that I can actually right click and open it with Notepad just so you can see what that looks like inside. So it's nothing mysterious inside. It's just a definition of um, what the environment looks like. So I know that this is not very clear with Notepad, but you can see the QEMU environment specifies the adapter type that's needed, specifies the architecture, specifies the disk interface, specifies the RAM and the number of adapter that will be needed, and then it specifies the images and the download URL for those images and um, the file names for them, and in some cases it specifies the MD5 of those. So that's essentially what's in the file. So if I close that and I specify select this file and I click on open, it's going to open and detect that and it says Sophos XG firewall and all those information that we saw in the file now. It's the category and everything else. If I click on next, it says where do you want to install the appliance on. So because I'm using a remote server in this case, I have the option to install the appliance on the main server. So I'll click on next, and it says the server requirement is okay. So you're going to verify that my server meets the requirement. If I click on next from here, then I have what this looks like. So for example, I have version 17.0.2 ML2, and essentially I have all these different images that I can bring in now. So for example, if I click on 17.0.2 ML2, it says I need two files that are currently missing. If I click on that and I click on download, what it's going to do is it's going to take me to the Sophos URL where I can download the image. And then once I've downloaded the image, so I need to register for the 30 days free trial. And once I've downloaded the image, I'll be able to go and click on import and import the image into this one. So that being said, what I'll do, as long as you understand that process, is we need two files to be able to use the third-party appliance on GNS3, which we have as running in Azure. We need our appliance file, a GNS3 marketplace appliance file, and we need to import that into GNS3. And then we need to get the images from the third party. So we get the images and then we bring that in, and then we'll be able to use our appliance in GNS3. So what I'll do here is I'll pause the recording because I don't actually need to go to the Sophos website to download the images. I have my images all available and ready to me. So first of all, I'll mount the storage where I'm saving those, and then I'll resume the recording and then show you the rest of this process. So I'll see you in a few minutes. So welcome back. So for me, what I've actually opened up here is I do have certain GNS3 appliances and images from third-party vendors, including Sophos that I've downloaded over time, and I have them saved on this location. So that's what I'll do. So under here, if I double click on Sophos, and if I go under the XG, there's actually a later version of the Sophos XG, which is 17.1.0 GA, and I have that available, and I have the appliance file here. So, but what you notice is the file that I imported here does not have 17.1.0 GA. So it only has 17.0.2 ML2. So the first thing that I'll do is I will create a new version because I have a later version than what's available in the file. So if I go ahead and create a new version and I specify 17.1 and I can put GA next to that and I click OK, it's just going to add that for me. And then what I need to do is I need to, under 17.1 GA, I need to click on the primary file and I need to click on import. And under import, I need to go to my drive where I have all my appliances and images on the Sophos, on the XG, and I go under 17.1.0 and I go to specify the primary file. So I double click on that and it's going to begin the upload process. So obviously this is going to take a while to finish. So I'll pause the recording. But this is the way that we use third-party GNS and third-party appliances within the latest version of GNS3. We again import the appliance file that we downloaded from the marketplace. If there's a later version than what's available in the appliance file, we can create a new version so that we have references to that. And then we download the images from the third-party vendor site and then we import them like I'm doing with the Sophos XG image at the moment. I'll pause the recording. Once that's finished, I'll go through the rest of the process. And welcome back. So that's completed now for the primary disk. So I need to do the same for the auxiliary. So I'll go ahead and click on import and I'll specify the auxiliary that I downloaded from Sophos website and which you can download from the link that's available. And I click on open and it's going to begin the upload. So what it's actually doing it is uploading this to the server. So there's a location on the server that it is saving this to. So what I'll do is I'll wait for the uploads to complete, and once this is completed, I'll resume the recording again. Hello, welcome back again. So this has now finished. So we have both the primary and the auxiliary disks fully imported. If I go ahead and click next, sorry, so if I go say, would you like to install the Sophos XE firewall 17G? If I go ahead and close that, actually, if I just select this and I click next, it's going to still ask me the same question. Would you like to install the Sophos XE firewall 17.1 GA, which is what I've imported, and I go ahead and click yes to that. It's going to specify and ask me what's the architecture. I'll leave that as the default, which is x86-64 architecture, 64-bit. I'll go ahead and click next. It's showing me all this information from the GNS3 appliance file. If you're a much advanced user, you should be able to find your way. Just go inside the appliance file if you need to make modifications and modify. But that's essentially it. If I go ahead and click next, it gives me some basic information here to say port 0 is where you need to connect to after it's installed to be able to configure your firewall. Port 1 is the default one, and it gives you information essentially about the Sophos XG firewall the first time that you're running it. So, which I won't go through, but you can read those from here. I go ahead and click finish, and it says it's successfully installed. If I start a new project now, for example, I'll say Sophos Lab, and I click OK to that. If I click under here to get my devices, and I change this to installed appliances, I'll see the Sophos XG firewall 17.1 GA. And all I need to do is to drag it and put it in the window. If I start it, I can begin to use this now. But before I do that, we'll go through the rest of our process so we have everything that we need. So if I bring up the nice diagram again and the steps. So I've just done this for the Sophos XG firewall. I'll do the same for the Sophos UTM and for Ubuntu Desktop. So those are the three that I'll be using for the lab environment that I'm building today. And remember, all of this is running on Microsoft Azure. I'm not hosting any powerful physical servers to do this. It's all running on Azure. So let's go back here. So the next thing I'll do is I'll click on File and I'll click on Import Appliance because I want to import another one. And I'll go to my drive where I have my Sophos and I have the UTM and I have my appliance file already downloaded. So if I click on that, I have the appliance file. I click Next. I install on the main server. I click Next and it shows me all this information. So the version that this appliance file goes up to, it goes up to version 9.506. But I believe I have a later version than that. If I go back on the Sophos on the UTM, I think I have version 9.509. So what I'll do is I'll go create a new version like I showed you earlier. Just click on create a new version, put in the version name there, click OK. And if I scroll down, I have my new version there and the version name. So what I need to do is I need to click on the ISO file where it says missing. I click on import, browse to my 509. Again, you can download a trial of this from Sophos website. Actually, for home users, you can use this for free, which is amazing. So I click on that. I click on open. And again, it's going to begin the upload. It is actually uploading this to my server. So because I'm still connecting to my server using SSH, I can actually show this to you. So if I do list, so it is in a location. It is actually uploading all those to a location on this server. So if I do no, it's okay. Yeah, I'll look for the location where it's uploading this, and then I'll be able to show that to you. So, but once it's doing this, what I'll do is I'll pause the recording. Once it's completed, I'll show you how I go through the rest of the process. And that's completed now. So looking at this, I have the Sophos UTM 9.509 already imported. So the image is been imported now. So what I can do is I can select that and then click on next. It's going to ask me if I want to install the Sophos UTM Home Edition, it's calling this. So if I go ahead and click on next, so you can see the location that's actually copying the image to. So that's user bin and that location. If I go ahead and click next, and then I click next again, and then it gives me again some basic information on configuring the UTM after deployment. Then if I click on finish, and it says I have the Sophos UTM Home Edition 9.509 installed. So again, I'll drag that into my workspace, and I'll come back to that. So the final one that we need to import from the steps that we're following is the Ubuntu Desktop. So if I go again to File, Import Appliance, I go to where I've downloaded the appliance file from the marketplace. So I have that under Ubuntu, on the desktop, and I have version 17.10. But that's the appliance file. So if I click on that, and I click next, and then you can see that this only goes up to version 17.04. So again, I need to create a new version. I'll call this 17.10, and I say OK, and go to Ubuntu's website to download the VMDK. Once that's downloaded, I can click on import, which I have downloaded, and I can go specify that. And it's going to begin the upload process. So this one will take a while because that's 4.0 gigabyte of data that is going to upload to the server. But again, I'll pause the recording. Once this is completed, we would have completed this step. So now we can move on to the next one, which is so we've actually done this for the Active Firewall and the UTM. So I'll complete this for Ubuntu Desktop also. And then after that, I'll bring in Ubuntu Desktop into the lab environment, and then I can show you how I can start that. In the meantime, I'll pause the recording, and what I'll do when I pause the recording is, once we're back, I will make some modifications to my workspace, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the process. So the Ubuntu 17.10 has now finished importing. So you can see that it's found now. So if I click on next, it's going to ask me if I want to install Ubuntu Desktop version 17.10. I can select yes to that. And if I go ahead and click next, and it tells me what the username, the default username and the default password is. So you can make a note of that default password. Then if I click on finish, it says that installed. So what I can now do, so if I scroll down here, I have Ubuntu Desktop gets 17.10 installed, and I can drag that here. What I'll need to do is I'll drag one of them under the Sophos XG firewall, and I'll drag another one under the Sophos UTM. So what I'll do quickly is I'll rename these appliances. So I can right click this and click on change host name. So I'll call this Sophos XG firewall 01, and I'll change the name of the UTM to Sophos UTM 01. The other thing that I'll do is I'll change, you know what, I can just leave this the way they are. Just so you know, the default IP address of the LAN interface of the Sophos XG is 172.16.16.16. So what I'll do is I'll just grab some text, and I'll put that there, 172.16.16.0/24 is what this network will be. And let's grab another one. This will be 172.16.16.16/24 is the interface of the Sophos XG on this side. For the UTM, what I'll do is I'll give it an IP address of 192.168.2.100 is what I'll give it. And for the network, that means that'll be 192.168.2.0/24. And that will be the network. So to connect them, I just selected the cable here. I can come over here and select this cable, and I can connect that to 80, and I want the very first port, which is 80. And I connect this 80 on the Ubuntu desktop to 80 on that. And again, I will just drag this to make it look much better. The other thing that I also like doing is I like changing it from this default icons to something that's more custom. So what I can do is I can click on the XG firewall, left click. I can hold down the control button and then left click on the UTM. That'll select both of them. So you can see that they're both gray now. If I right click, I can click on change symbol. And rather than using one of these default symbols, I have a PNG file that contains an image of the Sophos XG firewall. So I'll click on the use custom symbol. I'll click on the browse and I'll go to the same location where I stored everything earlier, or where I showed you earlier. So go on the Sophos, go on the XG, and I have Sophos XG PNG file there. If I double click on that and I click OK, that opens the Sophos XG firewall there. So that's a nice image just to make things look a bit much more nice. That's all that is. Just makes it look a bit much more nicer. So now do the same for the Sophos UTM and go, that's this way, and that's this network. So this looks okay to me. The other thing that I need to do is we need to power on these machines. So to do that, I can start one after the other, right click the XG firewall, and then click on start, and that's it. I'll do the same for the UTM. I'll do the same for the Ubuntu desktop guests also. So right click and start. So they've all started now. For me to connect to them, I can right click on the Sophos XG and click on console. And that will show me the SSH console, or this, in this case, I think it's using Telnet to connect to this, but the XG itself uses SSH, but it's connecting to this console, and I can see the Sophos XG firewall loading up, and it's doing the first boot. I can make that much clearer for you. If I go to change settings, make the appearance 16 and bold, and I click OK and apply, and that's much better. So that's the Sophos XG loading up the first time. The same thing I can do with the UTM. I can right click and I can click on console, and that opens up tight VNC viewer, and I can see the installation process for the Sophos UTM, which I'll follow through. I'll click on start. It's going to go through the process of detecting the CPUs. And in this case, I'll just go ahead and select OK, English UK, and Europe, and London. And I'll leave that time. That looks correct to me. And I'll click next. It says what's the interface for the web admin, in this case, the internal LAN interface. So that will be the interface here where it says 192.168.2.100. So I'll go ahead and select 80. And you can see that that's the IP address that it's given it by default. I'll go ahead and just go to next. Do you want the 64-bit kernel? If you want to install the Sophos UTM software, which you want to do, in this case, I'll go ahead and select yes. Do you wish to install our capabilities? I'll go ahead and select yes. It's going to erase the disk. That's fine. Would like to proceed? Yes. I want you to notice once it's already going, I have the UTM and the XG both powered on and the desktop guest. I want you to notice that you can see right here the utilization of the remote server. So you can see I'm using 9.8% CPU, 16.9% RAM, which isn't bad at all, considering I have 4 devices currently switched on. If I go back to the XG, you can see it's finished the initial, the first boot, and I'm on the screen here. The other thing I can do then is I can connect to the first Ubuntu guest by right-clicking and going to console. And I can see here it's got osboxes.org, which if I click on that, I can go ahead and ask me for the password, which we saw earlier when we did the setup. So that will be osboxes.org also. and hopefully that should log me in to this first one. So yeah, I'm logged into this first one. Now the thing is, with this interface of the Sophos XG, there's DHCP enabled by default, which we can disable after that, but just to start with, this DHCP enabled, and it would have given an IP address to this machine. So if I go back on the VNC viewer to my Ubuntu desktop, if I click on the wired connected, so I clicked on this icon here for the network connection on the wired connected. If I go on the wired settings, comes up with the wired settings, and I can see the wired network connections here. I can click on this icon here to go on the settings, and you can see that I have an IP address of 172.16.16.17, which I'll go ahead and just leave that. So, but I'll label that in my diagram. So that'll be 172.16.16.17. And then what I'll do is I'll bring up web browser. It's going to bring up the Firefox web browser. And then I can browse to the management web admin of the Sophos XG firewall, which is https 172.16.16.16 port 4444, and press enter to that, and I get the screen to show I'm connecting, but it's saying the connection is not secure. It's because the certificate information or the default certificate is not trusted. So if I go ahead and click advanced and add an exception for that, confirm the exception, and it's going to take me to the initial setup of the Sophos XG firewall. So really that's it. I'm connecting to the Sophos XG firewall now. I can click to begin, configure a password. Scroll all the way down and go next. So I'll click to accept the license agreement, and I'll click next to continue. I won't be saving the password at this time. So it's asking me here for the internet connection, which for now I'll just leave disabled for now. So I'll select this option to say continue offline for now. And if I scroll here, actually let me expand this a bit more. And then if I click on continue and continue to that. So I'll show you in the next video how to set up internet connection. So Sophos XG firewall 01 is what I called it. So I'll give it the same name. Sophos XG firewall 01. And scrolling down, the time zone looks okay. I'll go ahead and click continue. And for basic configuration, it's telling me the licensing evaluation. I'll go ahead and select the customer improvement. And rather than go through the rest of the process choosing the wizard, I'll just click on skip to finish. It goes through the configuration summary. And I can click on finish there. So this should sign me into the web admin of the Sophos XG firewall the first time. So while this is going on, what I'll do is I'll just quickly check on the UTM, and I can see that it's still going through its installation. So I'll minimize that again. The other thing that I'll do once this is going on is I'll go back to my workspace. I'll right click on the second Ubuntu guest, and I'll go ahead and connect to it by clicking on console. And I'll go ahead and sign into it also, using the same password. OS boxes.org, and click on sign in. So with this one, what I'll need to do is I'll need to configure an IP address for this machine. so that I can connect to the UTM. So it has to be on the same network. So I'll go ahead and give it an IP address of 192.168.2.17 just to keep it consistent with .17 that this one has. So I'll keep this one as .17 also. So that's what I'll give to this interface once I'm connected to it. So which I am connected to it. I click on the network icon there, go on the wired connection, on the wired settings. I click on this button to go on the settings for that. And under IPv4, I need to change that from automatic to manual. And then I give it an IP address of 192.168.2.17. Subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. Gateway is 192.168.2.100. And DNS server, I'll use a public DNS of 8.8.8.8. And I'll go ahead and click on apply. And that's done. So another thing that I'll do is I'll just turn it off and turn it back on. So I have this client configured. Let's go back to the first guest, which is now connected to the Exchange firewall. I can log in as admin to begin with, which I can change the password afterwards. Oh, sorry, I set a different password, no admin. So I need to configure or enter the password that I set earlier. And if I click on login, it's going to ask me if I want to register a serial number. Again, you can go to Sophos website and get a trial serial number. For now, I'll just select I do not want to register now and go ahead and click on continue. And now I'm logged into the Sophos XG firewall. One of the quick things that I would like to do is if I go on the network, on the DNS, I'll quickly modify its DNS to be static. So I want to give it the Google DNS 8.8.8.8, and I go ahead and click on apply. So let's go back. So that's done. Let's go check on the UTM now again. So UTM has finished. I can press enter to reboot that. So once the UTM comes back on, I should be able to connect to the web admin of the UTM from this other desktop guest. I should be able to connect with web admin to begin management also. So what I'll do is as the UTM is coming back up now, I'll pause this recording. Once it's fully loaded, I'll resume the recording and show you the rest of the process. So welcome again. So the UTM has fully loaded now. Going to my other guest, if I type in https 192.168.2.100 port 4444 and press enter to that, and I can see I have the same message due to certificates. I can scroll down and add an exception. And now I'm prompted to where I can do the initial setup. So for now, I won't go through like the rest of the process because I assume that you're familiar with going through the rest of the process. So I'll go through this process offline myself, which is just give it a name, do the initial configuration. And once I'm done with that, in the next video, I'll proceed to show you how do I get internet connection into my GNS3 lab environment, knowing that I'm running on a remote server. So there's actually like a couple of steps that we need to do to get that working. But hopefully from this recording, now you understand how we can bring in third-party appliances into GNS3 using the GNS3 Marketplace appliance. And now we can configure that and we can use that to create a lab environment that we can begin to use. So hopefully that's been beneficial to you, and I'll see you in the next recording. Thanks.